Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're digging into something, well, really important for understanding teenagers.
Absolutely.
It's about how cannabis use might impact their thinking skills. Things like planning, making decisions, staying focused.
We often call those executive functions.
Exactly. And we want to explore the potential link between cannabis dependency, these functions, and school difficulties, even dropping out.
It's a serious concern.
And we know our listeners want the core insights, quick and clear, so we've done the reading for you.
We've focused on one specific study. It's titled The Impact of Cannabis Dependency on Executive Functions, and they're linked to school dropout among adolescents.
Right. That's the one by Dr. Yoons Bousmaha and Dr. Lassen Sedek, published recently, 2024, in the Science Step Journal.
And the research itself was done with adolescents in Fez, Morocco.
So our mission today really is to unpack what this particular study tells us.
Looking at that triangle, cannabis use, those vital thinking skills, and school engagement, all based on their findings.
Okay, let's get into it. Why this study now? It seems there's a growing worry about cannabis use in young people.
That's definitely the backdrop. The researchers themselves point out that cannabis use is becoming more common among Moroccan teens.
And adolescence is such a key time for brain development, right?
It really is. It's a critical period. So any substance use then, well, it has the potential to significantly impact how the brain matures.
Especially those higher-level thinking abilities.
Precisely. Those executive functions we mentioned earlier.
So let's clarify that term again. Executive functions. For someone maybe not familiar, what are we actually talking about?
Think of them as like the CEO of the brain, your command center.
Okay.
They're the mental skills we use to manage ourselves, manage our resources, basically to get things done and achieve goals.
So like planning ahead, making choices.
Yes. Planning, decision-making, being flexible when things change unexpectedly. That's mental flexibility. Also managing your behavior, organizing tasks, handling time, staying focused, concentrating. It's quite a suite of skills.
So these are the mental tools we need to stay organized, stay on track. You can see how vital they'd be for school.
Absolutely. Homework, studying, paying attention in class, it all relies heavily on these functions.
And this study suggests these very skills might be affected by cannabis use in teens.
That's the hypothesis they're testing, yeah.
Yeah.
That things like planning, decision-making, mental flexibility could be impacted.
Which could lead to problems in school and, socially too.
That's the concern, yes. The study mentions potential links to serious school and social problems.
Okay, backdrop established. Increasing cannabis use, critical brain development window, the importance of executive functions. Let's dive into the Moroccan study itself. How do they approach this?
So they worked with 60 adolescents in Fez, Morocco, aged between 16 and 21.
Okay.
And they split them into two groups, 30 in each. One group was identified as cannabis dependent.
How did they confirm that dependency?
They used a combination of self-reports from the adolescents and a standardized tool, the Cannabis Addiction Scale.
Right. And the other group?
The control group? Also, 30 adolescents verified as not using cannabis or other substances.
Got it. So how did they actually measure these executive functions? It sounds complex.
They used a pretty well-known neuropsychological test. It's called the Wisconsin Card Sorting Test, or WCST.
WCST. What does that test actually show?
It's quite clever. It measures several things at once. It's particularly good for assessing mental flexibility, how well you can adapt when the rules suddenly change.
Okay.
But it also gives insights into time management during the task and your ability to sustain attention and concentration.
So both groups took this WCST test, and was the testing environment controlled?
Yes, very much so.
Or
It all took place at the Haytaric Addiction Center in Fez.
individual testing?
Yes. Each adolescent was tested one-on-one to avoid any outside influence. They even timed responses as another indicator, potentially of mental flexibility.
Okay, setting the stage perfectly. Two groups, a specific test, controlled environment. Now, the big question. What were the results? What did they find comparing the groups?
Well, the difference was quite stark, actually. There was a clear negative link between being dependent on cannabis and performance on these executive function tests.
Meaning the cannabis-dependent group scored lower?
Significantly lower, yes.
Yes.
The average score for the cannabis-dependent group was around 40.2,
Okay.
compared to an average of 70.3 for the non-dependent group.
Wow, that's a really substantial difference, not just a small blip.
Not at all. And they quantified this relationship statistically.
How so?
They found a statistically significant negative correlation. The Pearson's R value, was narrowed 0.58.
Negative 0.58. And the significance?
The p-value was very low, 0.001, which basically means it's highly unlikely this result is due to chance.
So stronger dependence linked to weaker executive functions, specifically things like mental flexibility, decision-making.
And time management, yes. Those seem particularly affected according to their analysis of the WCST results.
So this Moroccan research seems to echo findings from other studies then.
It does. The researchers themselves connect it back to earlier work, emphasizing that psychoactive substances can indeed negatively affect these crucial cognitive processes.
Okay, clear link between cannabis use and lower scores on these thinking tests in this group. Did the study also connect those thinking skills to school performance?
Yes, that was the next critical link they investigated.
What did they find there?
They looked at academic performance and found that the cannabis-dependent group, the ones with the lower executive function scores, also had significantly lower average academic performance.
Do you have the numbers for that?
Yes. The average performance for the dependent group was 58.4 versus 75.3 for the control group.
Another pretty big gap. And was there a direct statistical link shown between poor executive functions and lower grades?
Absolutely. They used regression analysis and found a significant negative coefficient. Beta was -0.45 with a p-value of 0.003.
So that suggests weaker executive functions directly influence poorer school performance in these adolescents.
That's what the statistics indicate, yes. The worse the performance on executive function tests, the lower the academic results tended to be.
Does the study offer clues as to why? What specific school challenges might stem from this?
They point towards difficulties with concentration and time management as likely key factors.
Makes sense. If you can't focus well or plan your study time.
Exactly. Both core executive functions, it's just going to be harder to keep up academically. Difficulty planning likely impacts organizing study, meeting deadlines, directly hitting grades.
And again, this isn't in a vacuum, right? It aligns with previous research.
Yes. The paper mentions other studies finding that cannabis addiction can hinder academic success, especially where things like task management and organization are needed. This study adds more weight to that.
Okay, so we have cannabis linked to lower executive function, which is linked to poor academic performance. What about the final piece, the connection to actually dropping out of school?
They looked at school absenteeism as a proxy for that risk, and they found a significant positive relationship between cannabis dependence and missing school.
How significant?
The cannabis-dependent group missed an average of 15.3 school days.
15.3, wow, compared to
just 4.2 days on average for the non-dependent control group.
That's more than 3 times higher. A huge difference.
A very striking difference, yes.
And I assume there's a statistical correlation here too.
A strong one. A significant positive correlation, R equals 0.67, with a p-value of 0.0001, extremely unlikely to be random chance.
So higher cannabis use strongly correlated with missing more school days.
Right.
Why might that be happening, beyond just the cognitive effects?
The researchers suggest a few things. Maybe decreased motivation for school, definitely difficulty managing time to actually get to school, and potentially just a general feeling of disengagement from the whole educational environment.
Which could stem from how cannabis impacts not just thinking, but maybe mood and emotions too.
That seems plausible, yes. Those cognitive and emotional processes are so intertwined with academic success.
And this connection between substance use, cognitive issues, and dropout isn't new either.
No, the study references other research that found similar strong associations between cognitive deficits from drug dependence and lower academic performance or dropout behaviors. These Moroccan findings really reinforce that pattern.
Did the study mention any other challenges the cannabis-dependent group faced?
Yes, briefly. It noted they also recorded higher levels of stress, anxiety, and some behavioral problems as well.
Which would only complicate things further, academically.
Undoubtedly. It paints a picture of multiple interconnected challenges.
So wrapping this all up, what's the main takeaway message from this specific study, the core conclusion?
It's pretty direct. Cannabis dependency negatively impacts adolescents' executive functions. This, in turn, harms their academic performance.
And there's a strong link to increased risk of school dropout.
Yes, particularly linked to deficits in mental flexibility and time management, those key executive functions.
Given these findings, what do the researchers suggest? What are the implications?
They really call for early and targeted interventions. Programs specifically designed to strengthen executive functions planning, decision-making, time management skills. These could be crucial in sort of buffering the negative effects of cannabis dependency.
So it's not just about tackling the drug use.
It seems not. It's also about proactively building up those underlying cognitive skills that are being affected.
Where should these interventions happen?
They suggest integrating these approaches into both prevention and treatment strategies for cannabis dependence, in schools, but also in specialized health centers.
And it sounds like teamwork is needed
Mm,
between schools and health systems.
definitely. They highlight the need for much closer collaboration
Why?
to identify adolescents who might be at risk earlier, and then to provide tailored support that includes both psychosocial and educational help.
Okay, so for our listeners, this deep dive into the Bouzmaha and Sedek study really provides some, well, compelling evidence from a specific context, Fez, Morocco.
It really does. It shows a clear pathway, cannabis dependency impacting thinking skills, which then creates real challenges in school.
It offers a clearer picture of those challenges.
And what's interesting is how this specific piece of research reinforces that broader understanding of adolescent brain development and the risks of substance use.
It really underscores how linked everything is: thinking skills, school success, overall well-being. It definitely leaves you thinking, considering these findings, what are the bigger societal implications for how we support young people's cognitive growth, how we address substance use?
And how might communities, schools, health systems need to adapt to foster better outcomes?
Yeah, how do we build that support structure effectively? Lots to mull over.
Indeed.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.